I agree. I agree.
I think you guys are all way too sensitive.
No, you know, the thing is, the funny thing is that you're too sensitive. You're sensitive that we have an opinion.
All right,
that's
check.
crazy. If people are upset with it, they have an opinion.
President of the United States in the last term, Donald Trump, literally ran on banning Muslims from coming to the United States. He wanted to ban Muslims from coming. He had a conversation with Giuliani where he said, "How do I ban all Muslim immigration?"
This video is brought to you by TatumStore.com. TatumStore.com. Get the merch link in the description section. Link will pop up here. Discount will pop up here. Link will be in the description section. Like and subscribe to the channel. Y'all already know what to do. Let's get into this.
So the opening ceremony, I was watching this, and there were lots of things which blew my mind. Some in a good way. I thought Celine Dion's comeback was spectacular, an incredible act of heroism, frankly, after what she's been through with her health. But this scene involving a parody, a lampooning of Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper painting. Clearly that's what it was. They tried to pretend it was to do with some Greek god feast and so on. But the woman in the middle there with the kind of weird spiky halo above her head, who was playing Jesus, actually said on the Instagram, this was clearly, she put it next to the Da Vinci painting. So there was no doubt what they thought they were doing. They were lampooning the Last Supper. Now, I'm a Catholic. There are 2.4 billion Christians in the world. I can only begin to imagine the uproar if this had been done to, say, Islam or to Hinduism or to Judaism, to any other religion, frankly. But because it was the Christians, it was like, well, it's a fair game, Gov. I didn't think it was. I thought it was grotesquely and deliberately offensive. What were your thoughts?
Okay, so first of all, I don't agree with you. I think it was about Greeks. Olympics are Greek in origin. That painting, Dionysus, is in France. The other one is in Italy. But let's say that you're right, Piers. Well,
I'm only basing it on what the woman who was playing the central character.
Yeah, but she's not the director.
On her Instagram,
she's just one rando actor.
She literally put the two pictures next to each other.
Piers, she's a rando actor. She didn't choreograph it, she didn't direct it. But none of that matters because I don't agree with your central point anyway. So in the right wing in America, they're always saying, oh, freedom of speech, man, freedom, okay? Who cares if you get offended? So I'll offend black people, Muslims, Jews, women, gay people, ha ha ha, freedom. And the minute that Christians are offended ever so slightly, they're like, oh my God, we're the victims. We're the most special victims of all time. Okay, get over yourselves. And by the way, I'm consistent on this. You know, I was born Muslim, but when Muslims say you can't draw the Prophet Muhammad, I say, hey, brother, you can't draw the Prophet Muhammad. That doesn't apply to anyone else. They're not in your religion. So can everybody just stop being offended at everything and move on with your lives? Really, this is so important to you, and you caught feelings over it?
Destiny is somebody who I know very rarely gets offended by anything. What was your view of this?
I mean, like, there's two levels to this. So one, if it truly was a parody of The Last Supper, then I guess you can evaluate it as such. And if you want to get offended or you want to be upset about it, I can understand why people would be. But I mean, I mean, the idea that this was with like the festivities involving Dionysus and the fact that this is like the Olympics and the Greeks and the fact that like the big thing that everybody's mad about is like the one picture, which is like zoomed in and it's not even what the thing in totality looked like, is just pearl clutching from conservatives. And, you know, when you look at, it's funny because in a way it kind of wraps into the whole Kamala Harris and conservatives being threatened. Conservatives have only run off of like culture war stuff and like crazy social issues for the past like 8 years. There is no policy platform. So it's not surprising to me that now the new thing, the new chip that they've inserted into their mind to be upset about this week is that they feel slighted by the Olympics, you know? Who knows, maybe it'll be a Happy Holidays Cups, you know, in a few months or something.
All I would say is I'm not a conservative. I am a Christian. I'm a Catholic. And I was pissed off by it. I thought it was deliberately mocking our religion in a way that they just wouldn't have done it with Islam.
Oh, wait,
they wouldn't have done it with Islam.
You were watching. You were
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you why. You're like, oh my God, is this the last? I'm so upset right now. No shot.
Let me tell you why. I'll tell you why. Let me explain why. There's actually a shocking double standard about this. And it's this. There was a veteran commentator of 40 years of covering the Olympics and athletics. Normally in things like water polo, volleyball, all that kind of stuff. There's a guy called Bob Ballard. He's an English guy, and he was fired by Eurosport because he said this in relation to an Australian relay swimming team, female.
Well, the women just finishing off. You know what women are like, hanging around, you know, doing the makeup.
Outrageous, Bob. Some of the men are doing that as well.
They're doing the makeup. Yeah.
Now, Josie, here's the point I would make about this, and this is the double standard I was alluding to. It was a bit of a dumb joke, all right? It's a sort of silly, quite sexist joke about women taking their time to do their makeup. But who cares? It was obviously just a little joke. He's an older guy. He hasn't got the woke memo about no one can laugh at anything anymore. But putting aside that to one point, he gets fired immediately. But the people behind the desecration of The Last Supper in front of billion viewers, offending 2.5 billion Christians, none of them get held accountable. Why has Bob Ballard had to go for what was a lame but tame joke about female swimmers?
It's about two different sets of rules for two different types of people. And he said something that was considered sexist against women, which, let me say, as a woman, yes, we take a while to do our makeup, and that's okay. And it's all right to acknowledge that. It's just the truth. And it's nothing sexist about it. But since he offended the wrong people, he had to pay the punishment for offending the wrong people, which was, what is it, losing his job?
Yeah, I mean, he's been pulled off the Olympics. I mean, Officer Tatum, here's my problem. Nobody's really offended by what he said. Nobody. And yet I read people on social media calling for his kind of summary execution. This was the most disgusting. And here's what really got my goat too. This was all raging away at exactly the same time that a Dutch male swimmer was trending on X because he's wearing a flesh-coloured swimming trunks, which looked like they reveal a bit too much. And women who were expressing, on the one hand, outrage at this sexism from Bob Ballard were all drooling over this Dutch guy's trunks. It's one rule for them, another for us, Officer Tatum.
100%. I mean, I think that's what frustrates people, because it's like, look, if you listen, I would love to see them do a mockery of Muhammad. I mean, their heads would be laying on the table and they begin thrown off of these buildings that we see in the background. If that was the case, they never would mock Muhammad. And I don't think they should mock Christianity. I'll just say this. It's bad for business no matter who you are. If I was on the board and I was looking to do events, I'd say, how about I be as impartial as possible so people can actually enjoy the Olympics, they can enjoy the festivities, and we don't have to offend people in this moment. But they could not help themselves but to shame Christians. And then if a man makes a comment about a woman, it's like it also makes people, here's what I'll say. Black people get so offended about just about anything. You see Jewish people get offended just about anything, and women get offended by just about anything. And it really creates this animosity in these groups, or gay people get offended by a lot of stuff. It creates animosity because a woman can make a joke about a man and say he's ugly, he's hairy, he's nasty, he's dirty, and men just take it, and who cares? But if you make a joke about a woman, they got a term called sexist. And it's weird to me. And what it does is it create animosity between groups that should not exist. It's just like if you make a joke about a black person, you will never in your life see a white comedian really joking about black people. Even if it's a joke, you hardly will ever see it. Black people joke about white people every day of the week. Why can't we all just look at each other as people? If somebody want to tell a joke, tell a freaking joke, laugh at it. If you don't like it, just turn the channel. But now it's such a double standard that when I was a cop, just real quick, when I was a cop, I could say things online, I could do things on patrol that if I were white, I would get fired immediately and called a racist. And that's just not right. And I want to see those things change in America.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy, have we just lost our sense of humor? I mean, I couldn't imagine you getting outraged by somebody making a joke like that to you. You would just probably laugh and whack them back with a zinger of your own, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that kind of stuff doesn't really bother me. That joke about women taking a long time, guess what? Women do take a long time. So it doesn't bother me in the least. I'm not going to get outraged about it. And to be quite honest, to go back to this Last Supper thing, I didn't like it. It somewhat offended me as a Christian, but all it's going to do for me is I just have no interest in watching the Olympics anymore because it's turned me off now because they've made a point of saying, hey, this is not for you. Kind of the same way that Bud Light made a point with Dylan Mulvaney saying, hey, all you other people, this really isn't for you anymore. So to go back to what Brandon Tatum said, this is more about a business thing because now I just have no interest in watching the Olympics. I might have otherwise. So just why do it? Why go out of your way to offend a certain people's religion? Bad for business. I'm not going to cry over it, but I just think it's stupid.
I agree. I
think you guys are all way too sensitive.
No, you know the thing is, the funny thing is that you're too sensitive. You're sensitive that we have an opinion.
All right,
that's
Cenk,
crazy. If people are upset with it, they have an opinion.
And let Cenk have his say.
So listen, I agree. Yeah, I agree with Piers on that. Ballard guy should have never been fired. It's totally innocuous joke. I agree that Democrats focus too much race and gender, and I agree that sometimes it feels imbalanced. But guys, you're pretending like Christians don't run the country. Of course they do. You're pretending like women have historically had the same amount of power that men have had. Of course they haven't. There's a reason why. So for example, I'll use my own background. In Turkey, if the Turks make fun of the Kurds, it's not the same as if the Kurds make fun of the Turks. Why? Because the Turks have all the power. And they could crush the minority who are the Kurds. There's a power imbalance there. That's what they're pointing out. Look, I wish we got past all this race and gender stuff, but if you want to talk about who's offended, I mean, you guys say like, oh yeah, you can never do it about Muslims. Are you crazy? As a guy who's ethnically Muslim, born Muslim, people say that they say the worst possible things about me, including that I should be killed 2,000 times over every single day, and nobody ever does a damn thing about it, because nobody cares about Muslims in this country.
No, hang on, Tatum. Brandon, hang on. The thing is, Cenk, you're missing the point. The point is not whether you would find a joke funny or not about Muslims. It's the fact that the Olympic chiefs would never have authorized a skit mocking Islam and the Prophet Muhammad in the way that that skit mocked Christianity and Jesus Christ. And it was interesting to me to see the reaction, actually, from Muslim groups, including one of the biggest Muslim groups in Egypt, where their leader came out and was as emphatically critical of what had happened on behalf of Christians as any Christians were. So this was something where I think leaders of all faiths around the world went, you know, even if it's not us, this is just gratuitously offensive.
It's the idea that it's the best comparison that's always done is
hold on, let me answer that.
Hang on, Destin, I'll come to you after.
Yeah, let me just answer that real quick. So first of all, I don't care about the Olympic Committee, and I don't believe that anybody's going to watch swimming or not watch swimming because they were offended by some sort of skit. If we're talking about which religion actually has power, are we kidding here? So Christians in Louisiana and other places are actually passing laws saying that the kids have to be indoctrinated with Christian propaganda. So there is actually people that have power in this country, and it is definitely not Muslims, it's Christians. And by the way, we're talking about getting offended. As now an atheist, people say that we're going to burn in hell. They say the most offensive things about us, and we don't sweat it. You know why we don't sweat it? Because we know we're right. If you guys knew that you were right, then you wouldn't sweat it either. But you actually are nervous about it because you don't think you're right. That's why you take so much offense at people saying their opinions about your religion. And that's true of all of them.
All right, Destiny, final word to Destiny.
Something that should always be kept in mind is conservatives always play this game. And Piers, I think you do it sometimes too, where people will say, well, look at this person in power and what they said. Okay, well, what if we compare that to what these random people on Twitter said? Why the comparisons, right? This guy was a commentator for the Olympics, and whether you agree or disagree with women participating in sports or not, the fact that you would allude to people doing makeup when these are some of the most athletically competitive women in the world doing their competitive events, I could imagine a lot of people would view that in really bad taste. I understand that and say, well, what about these random people on Twitter making comments? How is this even a comparison? Like, they're not going to be fired from anything because they're not working for anything. There's just random people on Twitter. And then again, this idea of like Christians being so mad that Tommy's over, I'll never watch the Olympics because one still from like an 8-hour opening ceremony offended me as a Christian. And it's like, Are we forgetting that? I mean, forget what Jenk said about people trying to have the 10 Commandments be, you know, in courthouses and you know, whether or not religious education or whatever should be mandated, all this. Forget that. The president of the United States in the last term, Donald Trump, literally ran on banning Muslims from coming to the United States. He wanted to ban Muslims from coming. He had a conversation with Giuliani where he said, how do I ban all Muslim immigration?
Are you
None of this is,
under a rock?
to be clear, none of this is even contested.
Destiny,
he went
you're
with the
living
7.
under a
He
rock.
went with the 7.
He
No,
did
I live
not-
in the real
he
world.
did
I
not
hope that you
say
conservatives
he was
join us
gonna
one day,
ban
please.
Muslims.
He absolutely did. You
He's
go look
gonna
it up.
ban
Giuliani,
Muslims
Donald Trump,
from America.
Conversation Muslim ban. There's a reason why
Put
he
some
went with the 7
money
countries
on
that he
it.
did.
Put some
He
money
did.
on it,
He
Destiny.
did. Go
Put
look
some
it up.
money
Just
on it.
go read it. Go read it.
We
Go
can do
read
a
it. Go look it
bet
up
right now.
Go look it up.
Let's bet right now. You say you'll ban Muslims
you know
from
what?
America.
I'm
There's
actually-
many Muslim
No, I
nations
know,
that weren't
Trump.
banned.
Look, I'll say one last thing. One last thing. For conservatives, Trump never means anything he says. He says, let's ban a complete and total ban of Muslims. And they go, no, he's just joking. He's lying. He's crazy. He's stupid. Don't ever believe anything he says. Then why do you guys like him?
Did Obama ban Muslims?
No.
Donald Trump went
course
on the same list for banned countries as Obama. Trump went on the same list as Obama's list.
Conservative
He's just
line.
Why
the
did he
same
say
list.
it, brother? He said it. He said it because he wants you to hate Muslims.
What Donald Trump
No, it's
said,
not.
fact check, okay, by a true patriot. Welcome to this fact check. Obama had a list of 7 countries that were under heightened scrutiny for surveillance for people that visited the United States. Donald Trump initially wanted to ban all Muslims. That got shot down as an idea. So instead,
no,
he
he
took that
didn't.
list of countries. He took the 7 countries that Obama had under
He
heightened
said
scrutiny
it.
for immigration or visas,
He wanted to
and he
ban
decided to
all
ban those
Muslims.
7 countries instead.
He's gonna
So the
ban
idea
all
that Donald
Muslims.
Trump used the
Where-
same list that Obama
it
did.
is actually-
to
hang on,
ban
hang on.
immigration
Ban all
ban,
Muslims.
Hang
Obama
on,
used
hang
it for
on.
heightened scrutiny for surveillance.
Hang on.
How could
It
Trump
is
ban all
completely.
Muslims?
Hang on. I'm about to say to Officer Tatum, Donald Trump never called for a ban on all Muslims. He actually called for a short-term cessation of allowing people from the 7 countries Obama had identified coming into America after a terror attack while they worked out what was going on. And that got shot down. That's actually the truth
Not
about
true.
what happened. And if you're going to talk about Barack Obama,
No.
let's come back to my favorite thing. My favorite statistic about Barack Obama is that for all the talk
Oh,
about
the
Trump
deporter
and
in chief.
deportations
Obama's
and
not
the
running for
border and everything
office.
else,
Pierce, let it
the
go.
truth is
He's not running.
The
He's
truth
not
is
running.
the
He's not
greatest
running for
deporter in
office.
the history of the United States was Barack Obama. Final
Okay,
word
we
to
won't
Tommy
vote for him.
Layren.
We're not going to vote for. I
Well, hang
promise
on,
not
hang
to
on.
vote for Barack Obama in 2024. I won't
He's
do
a
it. I'm not
Final-
voting for him.
final
I
word
swear to
to
He's a
God, I won't.
Tommy-
Democrat.